Alongside inequality, the other major danger we face is the rise of digital dictatorships that will monitor everyone all the time. This danger can be stated in the form of a simple equation, which I think might be the defining equation of life in the 21st century. B times C times D equals R, which means biological knowledge multiplied by computing power multiplied by data equals the ability to hack humans, R. If you know enough biology and you have enough computing power and data, you can hack my body and my brain and my life, and you can understand me better than I understand myself. You can know my personality type, my political views, my sexual preferences, my mental weaknesses, my deepest fears and hopes. You know more about me than I know about myself. And you can do that not just to me, but to everyone. A system that understands us better than we understand ourselves can predict our feelings and decisions, can manipulate our feelings and decisions, and can ultimately make decisions for us. Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people. We humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. That's what we are.
Ah, yes. Hackable animals. I hope you have been paying attention to my recent videos, particularly the Elite Mindset Analysis series. The one by H.G. Wells. Multiple things that was just echoed by that individual there, which is a lizard over at the World Economic Forum, has been present in the works of the elite as far back as 1928. For instance, they rely on the eradication of the soul, the elimination of the soul, in order to do this, right? What did he just say about that?
Can manipulate our feelings and decisions, and can ultimately make decisions for us. Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it,
yes,
but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack.
Nobody had enough computing power and data, and nobody had the technology to do that. What have I been saying the past how long in my previous Elite Mindset Analysis videos? I said specifically that it's not for lack of trying, so to speak. These people have wanted to do this for a long time. It's just that they never had the technology to do it. They could have bitched and moaned for up and down the street, right? Bitched and moaned non-stop, wouldn't shut the fuck up about it. As far back as the 1700s if they wanted to. Sorry. There you go, there's the levels. They could have bitched and moaned as much as they wanted to back in the 1700s about overpopulation. We should sterilize degenerates. We should practice a true scientific eugenics in order to create a singular world culture based on a new modern religion. Let's get rid of the spirit. Let's get rid of God. Let's replace it with science. These people have existed for a very long time, but the last presentation I made about H.G. Wells' book, Open Conspiracy, is the fact that they just simply did not have the physical capability to do so, and in this case, the technological capability to do so. And this is also the very reason that we talk about this as being the ultimate revolution, the final revolution. The revolutions of the past have been physical, dependent on brute force, and so too was the tyranny. The dictatorship being installed was dependent on brute force, the physical manipulation of the environment that man resides in. Manipulate that, take control of the physical environment, and everyone is aware that you're victim of a vicious dictator, right? You get punished physically, viciously, if you step out of line, if you disobey. But now, these dictatorships are silent because the very tools and tactics that will install them are silent. These are silent weapons, right? No audible explosion, no visible muzzle flash, and yet undeniable physical effects, both physical and mental. And this WEF lizard here said gone are the days where man is mysterious, unpredictable, right? There is no spirit. We know how the mind works now because we can hack it. And I've also been talking a lot about that recently because I've been thinking about it a lot recently. The mind began to become a lot more understood with the revolutions in psychiatry throughout the 1900s. The advent and advancement of the idea of operant conditioning. People like B.F. Skinner, the idea that humans can be conditioned at all. Before that, let me just make sure my audio is good real quick, guys. Sorry. Because before that, guys, the human was a mysterious animal indeed, because we possessed a soul, and surely the mind was simply too complex to fully understand. In fact, we'll never understand it. And that's the great mystery, right? That's why human beings are so advanced, there's no way we can ever truly on a scientific level understand it. But then you figure something like creationism comes around, evolution, the idea of evolution, the theory, and it is just that, a theory of evolution. Darwin, the effective elimination, the first step of effectively eliminating God. And that has brought us here today. The mix of technology combined with advancements in psychiatry and the understanding that the human being can be programmed and conditioned and is highly suggestible depending on the type of environment they're in and dependent on the type of stimuli that they encounter. We think of Pavlov at this point, we think of the dogs that he fucking tortured, and how you can dictate the status of the central nervous system based on the level of anxiety and fear instilled within them, and therein lies the key to conditioning. The more anxiety, the more fear, the more conditionable. But now is the advent of technology. They wanted to talk about overpopulation as far back as the 1700s, and I forgot who it was, we've talked about this, but they didn't literally have the means to do so, which is why countries around the world have relied on tyranny, dictatorships, etc., which is what I said was physical brute force. Everyone was aware they were in a dictatorship, they just couldn't do shit about it, because they would be tortured relentlessly should they ever step out of line. But now, we're so technologically advanced and so far from God and spirit as a society and the world as a whole, that we are now ripe and ready for an enslavement matrix to be built, erected, and engineered around us. And the best part is we'll never know. And even better than that is the fact we will worship the very same systems that indeed end up enslaving us comprehensively. Not with chains, not with shackles, not on any physical level again at all. In fact, if you were to try to create a tool of some sort to detect this enslavement system, it would be immeasurable, undetectable. It's because it's all about the soul, this soul enslavement. We are now hackable on a biological, atomic level due to technology, advancements in gene therapy technologies, in vivo technology and manipulation, CRISPR technology, gene sequencing, gene editing, paired up with the advent of nanoelectronics being spearheaded by DARPA. And we see a very scary overlap here because DARPA are the same people through the ADEPT program, was the very person or very group that ended up spearheading Moderna, funding Moderna to create, well, a gene therapy vaccine, right? So we understand that we are heading into a dark future, full comprehensive control of the mind, full elimination of the soul, and a replacement of something not even close to what the soul used to be, but rather just a hollow shell. So I appreciate you guys hanging out today. I have something very important to show you. So I do hope you pay very close attention to this. It's a little late, so I do kind of have to try my best to keep it brief. Every time I say that, it never works, but you know, your boy tries. We're going to be talking about digital identification systems, but more importantly, we're going to be doing that through the lens of a new document by the World Economic Forum. It's not brand new in the sense of it's a couple days old, so but it's one of the most important documents from the World Economic Forum that has come out recently. And this document is titled Advancing Digital Agency, the Power of Data Intermediaries. And as you can see, I'll pull that up here, the power of data intermediaries, Advancing Digital Agency, the Power of Data Intermediaries, February 2022. So it's quite new. And this is it's a 46-page report. We're going to get through a pretty big chunk of this. As you can see, I've got a lot of this highlighted. It took me a long time to do this for you guys, so I do hope you really appreciate it. But here's the thing. We're also going to bring ourselves into the current trendy news, right? We're going to be talking about Ukraine, because guess who plays a little bit of a role in all of this? The Ukraine does. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but the Ukraine actually is spearheading the new frontier of going entirely paperless when it comes to government paperwork and government, processes in general. There's a program called DIA, or an organization. It's either a program or an organization in the Ukraine called DIA. And it's strictly dedicated to ensuring that all of the government business that a citizen needs to concern themselves with is able to be done on a smartphone, aka the ability to house driver's license, social security number, so on and so forth, on a smartphone using a QR code. Now, that's something that a lot of people aren't really talking about in the sense of how digitally advanced Ukraine is, but not to mention, there's a very important key figure that is single-handedly the one behind bringing Ukraine to the forefront of this digital supremacy. And you're going to not really be surprised as to whom he is connected to, as well as why his role is vital when it comes to the Ukraine-Russia special operation. Go Ukraine! Let's go Ukraine! I'm rooting for the Reddit volunteers. Enough, guys, I'm gonna go to Reddit, take a selfie, geotag my location, then get drone bombed in a school gymnasium. Anyway, guys, before we get started, just very brief housekeeping. I'd really appreciate it if you go to rockfin.com/memoryhold. I've been uploading my catalog recently over there. It's going to take a while to get it all up. I'm going to try and get another video up before the end of the night, depending on how long this lasts. But guys, just go over there and create a free account. That would help me immensely. You're already over here on DLive. I know there's not a ton of you because it's late and I've been spotty with the videos recently just due to being IRL busy. But rockfin.com/memoryhold, guys. It's entirely free and it has a lot of functionality that BitChute doesn't. Okay, I'll always still be posting to BitChute though. So don't entirely abandon that, but think about it. If you have an iPhone, if you have an NSA spying device, it has an iOS app. It's super functional, it's super fluid. BitChute doesn't have that. You have to go and fucking play the video in the browser. That's lame as shit, and it's clunky and glitchy. It takes forever to load. Guys, Rockfin is smooth as shit. It plays fantastic through the app. I've actually been using it more than YouTube nowadays. And the same goes for DLive, but Rockfin I personally think has a more secure future. But the best part about it, everyone, is, and this doesn't even just go for you watching, but it goes for maybe someone you think might be interested in my content. If you're interested in signing up for $9.99 a month, you unlock not only all of my premium content, but you're unlocking everyone's premium content, whether that be fucking Jay Dyer, Jason Burmis, Sam Tripoli, the Conspiracy Social Club, David Whitehead, Grimerica, Risk Flex, Titus Frost, who else? Jimmy Dore, Tristan Haggard, Union of the Unwanted. Even Nathan Stoltman is on here, Lift the Veil. I haven't touched in with him recently. There's a few people I still have to follow on here. Guys, for real, I really appreciate the effort. If you do sign, just make a free account at the least, okay? And the same goes for those on Patreon. Right now, the way I have it set up is I'm getting a new Patreon video up, and I appreciate those that have been supporting me, but the Patreon exclusives, some of them will also be available as Rockfin premium videos too. But either way, the most important way you can help me is just doing exactly that, signing up on these alternative platforms, namely Rockfin, and following me on BitChute, guys. I really appreciate it. And I just want to give a shout out to John for the recent donation. I really do appreciate it, buddy. John sent me a Lamborghini and had it driven to my house with a little bow on top. He said, "Keep up the good work, Memory Hold." No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, John. I appreciate you, man. Donation links up above if you wish to contribute to the show and help prevent me from getting backed against a wall and shot dead by a bunch of spooks with energy weapons. But again, guys, it really comes down to Rockfin and BitChute. All right, that's the housekeeping. I think that's really all I got for you. So with that said, let's get going. I got to keep this nice and succinct for you. The last few videos have been quite lengthy. Fun, but quite lengthy. The first thing we're going to cover is this document, Advancing Digital Agency, the Power of Data Intermediaries. Now, we understand that the plan for a long time has always been the advent and installation and propagation of a digital identification system that will one day transform into a chip under the skin. Doesn't matter how schizo you think that sounds, the fact remains is that it's technologically feasible, and as far as I can tell in my assessment, the only real barrier is becoming comfortable with doing that. And in fact, they even mention microchip implantation in this document, in the context of a fucking digital ID system. This has been the plan for a very long time, and the document also mentions that the current COVID vaccine passport also serves as a digital ID system, which, yeah, sure, is a fairly basic observation, but you notice we've been saying for a long time that the vaccine passport is serving as a segue. It serves as a segue into this digital ID system, because what they'll do is, number one, it conditions us, speaking of conditioning, to having our ID on our phone with a QR code, right? And there's no reason for them not to expand functionality. Why keep it to just the vaccine passport? Well, they'll expand it outward. They'll expand the scope to then include other government related papers, such as your driver's license, the basics, anything that you have in paper that's really important, passports, birth certificates, and any number of things, to the point where probably it will one day become centralized, to the point where you can check up on outstanding parking tickets that you have, or fucking court dates if you're a degenerate, things like that. There's really no reason to keep it isolated and limited to only a vaccine passport, given all of the beautiful potential that such a piece of technology has. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is, well, we're having this article here, which, you know, does make you wonder. The recent COVID outbreak around the world is the tip of the iceberg, the World Health Organization says. So news on the COVID front has been so ridiculously silent, it's as if it never happened at all. And I've been saying for a long time that when this shit goes away, it's going to be as if it was a bad dream. And people are going to be so exhausted, even us, people are going to be so fucking tired of hearing about COVID and living it on a daily life, they're not even going to talk about it afterwards, after it ends. They're not even going to talk with each other. Damn, dude, that was crazy. I can't believe that just happened. No, they're so exhausted, that's in the rear view mirror, and we're not even going to look at the rear view mirror. And it won't be until years down the line where they realize just how truly crazy it was, and perhaps even how harmful the regulations and the protocols we instilled to combat it were. Then again, you can say the same shit about 9/11, and look, it's 20 years later, and still nobody really knows the full truth and gives a shit either. Nobody. So I was wondering for a while, they did a good old pivot with the Russians invading Ukraine, conveniently placing COVID out of the picture. And I mean, they just dropped it. When's the last time you saw a mask on fucking TV, dude? When's the last time you saw a mask anywhere? When's the last time you saw virtue signaling celebrity fucktards saying, get your vaccine, wear your mask, guys? It's pretty much over. But in the back of my head, thought I was muted there. In the back of my head, I was always thinking, look, this war could be the pretext, especially with all that biolab chatter, right? The biolabs in Ukraine. Perfect backstory, cover story, narrative for a second outbreak. What have we been being told by Bill Gates? We have to be prepared for the next one, but too bad for you because we're not, right? And the next one is going to be the big one. Well, you know, it'd really be a shame if those dastardly Russians were to get a hold of those Ukraine biolabs and whoopsie, airborne AIDS is out now. Or, on a more basic level, all these people fighting in combat and war over there, well, they spread the COVID because they didn't wear masks when they were fighting on the battlefield. And then it sparks another outbreak. So I was kind of fucking around with those two ideas. I said, we're not fully out of the woods yet. People think we are, but I know better than to think that. So I saw this article today, and I just began kind of poking around, and it reminded me of this digital ID system document by the World Economic Forum, which we're going to get to for a sec. By the way, where's Fauci? You know, he could have died and nobody would have ever known. Anyway, just the tip of the iceberg, of course. Don't think you're too safe yet, bucko. Countries across the world should remain vigilant against the novel coronavirus due to recent wave of COVID-19 cases spreading around the world, the WHO warned. And I believe there's even a new strain, a new flavor of COVID, driving the news. These increases are occurring despite reductions in testing in some countries, which means the cases we're seeing are just the tip of the iceberg. Tedros, that retard, told reporters. The rise in cases had been linked to the new BA.2 subvariant of the Omicron variant. Lifting public health recommendations and restrictions contributed to the spread too. Oh, God forbid. And that's what the World Health Organization said. Guys, we don't want you to ever walk outside your home without a mask or in general ever again.
States sees a decrease in cases and easing of pandemic restrictions. China and Europe are dealing with serious outbreaks of new COVID strains. This news overseas comes as the CDC confirms an uptick in the presence of COVID-19 in wastewater samples across the U.S. For more on all this, we're going to bring in NBC News medical correspondent Dr. John Torres. Hey, Dr. Torres, I want to start by asking you about these new outbreaks.
Dr. Torres, this retard just shapeshifted into his human form seconds before he went live on the camera.
Outbreaks that we're seeing in China and Europe. Is this the same strain we saw in the U.S. around Thanksgiving? And are these an indication that we might see another COVID spike here in the U.S.?
Well, here's the problem, Miss Asian news anchor. This is a variant of the Omicron variant, which therein means it's going to be basically insignificant and undetectable to the point where you don't even know you have it. But here's why we need to shut down the world again. Not only does it help Ukrainians and support their cause against the Russians, but it also helps us.
And good evening, Vicky. And I think what we're seeing here is basically a tale of two different countries. If you look at China, yeah, they're having large outbreaks in China right now. They're shutting down cities, trying to keep it under control. But China's in a little bit of a different situation because they tried that that full containment, zero COVID type policy, which didn't work in any country that tried it. So they don't have that.
Wait, hold on. Didn't work in any country that tried it? What are you saying? But what are you saying? I thought the lockdowns and zero whatever policy, I thought it did work. I thought lockdowns were dope. I mean, I kind of miss hanging with my Funko Pops and my Star Wars Legos for all year. I don't want to go back to the office. I thought the lockdowns worked. That's what you told me. You're saying it didn't work?
That immunity built up. Plus, on top of that, the shot they use, the Sinovac, which is the Chinese vaccine, isn't nearly as effective as the mRNA vaccines we're using here. And
damn. So in other words, it just didn't work at all. Like, in other words, if the Chinese one doesn't nearly work as well as the mRNA ones in America, that's basically being the equivalent of water then, because these ones aren't that great either.
Europe. So you can't really look at China and say that's something we're going to duplicate here. But then you turn to Europe, and in Europe you're seeing is countries like Austria that are having these huge surge in cases. They almost duplicate exactly what's going on here. And we've seen wave after wave where within a couple of weeks.
So you guys get it. Honestly, for a while there was real concern. I was talking about it with my buddies because truly when that biolab stuff started making its way, bubbling up to the surface, that was, by the way, the biolab stuff. I don't know if you guys remember, I'm sure you do, but at the very beginning of the invasion in Russia, number one, Putin had straight up stated in a televised broadcast in Russia, which is very well worth the watch, where he outlines his entire motives as to why he's engaging in this invasion, but he doesn't even so much call it an invasion so much as he calls it a special operation. And just to break it down, not as if I'm a geopolitical expert, but the main summary, very short one of his statements, were basically like, look, I've been very clear with you Western fucks. I need a sphere of influence. I need a nice little bubble where NATO isn't going to molest the fuck out of me, okay? And finger bang me into submission. I need that. But the Ukraine, of course, you've got a trans, weird gay comedian as a president, Zelensky, installed most likely by intelligence agencies as a puppet by the United States and other multinational intel spooks and such in order to westernize Ukraine and therein infringe on Russia, right? To kind of effectively back them into a corner, isolate them, more comprehensively than they ever have been. And this has been the plan since the 1950s. It's right out of the typical I don't want to say deep state, but these NGO steering committees, these think tanks. You can go back to Zbigniew Brzezinski's quotes on Ukraine and what the general plan of this new world order is. And it's always involved the slicing off of Ukraine in order to isolate Russia. And then, of course, that would result in driving Russia closer to China relationship-wise. So you might be seeing news articles right now talking about how, I saw one today talking about how our policy towards Russia is having inadvertent effects, aka making Russia, giving them more of an incentive, Russia, to pair up with China. But guess what? That's been the plan for decades, and they outright stated. George Soros and his Open Society Foundation has also outright stated that he played a vital role in the conflict in the Ukraine with Crimea that we saw in 2014, which was essentially right out of the type of color revolution playbook, its handbook that we've been seeing and deploying in countries all over the world in recent decades in terms of overthrowing and spreading democracy, aka demolishing whomever's in power, taking their natural resources or whatever the fuck they have to offer, maybe a few rapes and murders, and then installing a CIA type of puppet to then do our bidding. Point is, guys, that Russia just straight up said, guys, NATO, I'm gonna get mad and invade Ukraine if you keep doing this. And then we kept doing it. We kept doing it. We're setting up weapons within striking distance of Moscow and all the major metropolitan areas of Russia, despite Putin telling us, I'm gonna invade Ukraine if you continue. And then we have the balls, the absolute gall, to then act surprised when Russia actually goes, all right, I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and engage in exactly what I said I'm going to do for the past however many years. And we act surprised. And everyone's astonished and horrified, as if they ever cared about Ukraine before this. Long story short, Putin doesn't really call this an invasion so much as he calls it a special military operation, which is very interesting because in that 50-minute long speech he gave laying out his motives, if I remember, I'll throw it in the description of this video or the chat by the end of the stream, but the most interesting part that stands out in that speech is the fact that he mentions the development of chemical weapons on the Russian border. He doesn't mention biological weapons specifically, but chemical. Now, I know you can argue perhaps there's a difference between biological weapons and chemical weapons. And even further, you can argue that there's a difference between biological weapons and biological research. But we know that one leads to the other. You gotta engage in biological research to create biological weapons. So the point is that Ukraine has a ton of US-funded, US-backed biolabs that hold some really scary fucking pathogens. We're talking about like anthrax development. We're talking about like smallpox, terrible shit. And when this guy broke the story, he discovered that the strikes on the Ukraine basically overlapped, if you put it on a map, overlapped with all the locations of the biolabs in Ukraine. So essentially, the exact locations that Russia was bombing in the Ukraine were the exact locations of the biolabs. Now, I will make this known. That doesn't necessarily mean anything significant because here's the thing. The biolabs are going to be located in cities, right, on the outskirts of cities, okay? So it only makes sense that Russia is bombing those cities anyway. It doesn't mean they're striking specifically the biolabs, okay? So I will have that known. And we also do have to be careful because it's not as if Russia doesn't engage in this type of behavior, aka disinformation. So they do have a large incentive to play up the biolab story. But what is true and not disinformation is on the State Department, I think, their website that houses all of the PDF files outlining the U.S. grants and U.S. funding for the biolabs. After the guy that broke the story, he was banned swiftly. intensely right off the bat. The State Department removed all the documents from their website. So there is something going on with the biolab theory, and I was very concerned that this is the second wave of COVID, the final hand, so to speak, the you haven't seen nothing yet phase. And with this chatter, this little fucking chatter of this cases surging, you know, you can see how it could very well play into the narrative that Russia took control of these biolabs and they released it. All right, because they're Russians and they're evil. That's the context I wanted to discuss. And that brings me to, give me one moment. Give me one sec, guys. I accidentally backed out of Sorry, bear with me, guys, bear with me. Okay, it brings me to this. What the fuck? I'm a mess. Where'd you go? Here it is. Sorry about that, guys. Take a look at this. This article is from a day ago. It is a New York Times article. I'm going to drop that in the chat. Okay. Oh, thank you. It brings me to this. Shit, did my title update in DLive? It fucking better have. Alright, yeah, it did. I guess the thumbnail I forgot. Thank you for the ice creams, Boxy and Sarah. I appreciate you guys. It brings me to this recent article from the New York Times. Take a look. Shaming Apple and texting Musk. A Ukraine minister uses novel war tactics. Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine's youngest minister, has turned technology, cryptocurrency, and social media into modern weapons of war. Now, have you heard of this man? We've all heard of Zelensky, who, by the way, was basically nameless up until he was propagandized into popularity not that long ago. A raise of hands? Well, before we dive into that, just keep this headline in mind. Shaming Apple and texting Musk, a Ukraine minister uses novel war tactics. We're going to discuss in this video how he plays a extremely important role, not even in just the Russian invasion into Ukraine, but also the digital transformation of the world around us, but particularly the advent and installation of a universal digital identification system. And I haven't seen many people talking about this, guys, so please be sure to like this video, share it. I really appreciate it. We're live on DLive and BitChute. So with that said, I want to get through the real bulk of this, okay? Just keep that on the side. I wanted to lay the framework. This document is from the World Economic Forum from just last month, Advancing Digital Agency, the Power of Data Intermediaries. Now, the power of the data ecosystem has never been greater, but the system itself is becoming more difficult to navigate. Quick breakdown of what a data intermediary is basically a third party that is entirely objective, that manages your data and where it goes, where it's distributed, and who has access to it for you. But here's the thing. It's not going to be a corporation, well, kinda, but it's not going to be human beings that are the intermediaries, right? Think of like a middleman, right? No. We're talking about automation. We're talking about AI technology determining what data you have control over and what data of yours goes to whom, okay? It's a revolution of the way data is handled. So in a way, this document is outlining a proposal for moving into a new world where data and how it's handled is entirely revolutionized. And this is the system, the scaffolding in which will revolutionize that data and the system that it will follow. So data intermediaries as a lever of action. In this report, the World Economic Forum's Task Force on Data Intermediaries, composed of business, academic, and civil society actors worldwide, explores these questions and more. Building on the forum's Redesigning Data Privacy, Reimagining Notice and Consent for Human Technologies Interaction report, the task force examines data value chain scenarios as they already exist today. and may exist in the future, with a view to improving both human-technology interaction and data sharing more broadly. Now, you're going to notice that a theme that they continuously bring up is making sure to note that all of this is going to be human-centric. Don't worry, you come first. Don't worry, you're always going to have bodily autonomy. Don't worry, the humans come first. We know we're putting you at the whim of AI-powered quantum computing machines that'll dictate data decisions for you and stuff, and what you can access and what you can't. But don't worry, our thoughts are on you. We're human-centric. You'll notice they continuously mention that, as if they kind of know deep down that what they're typing and writing is so fucking scary that the only way anyone would actually get on board is if we keep reminding them, oh no, don't worry, you come first. We'll never put technology, without empathy before you. In an era that has policymakers moving beyond just privacy laws and to grapple with developing policy levers designed to support data sharing for common purposes, the task force shares what it has learned to support responsible policies. The value-added use of data intermediaries as a key to unlocking complexity and building trust holds the promise of protecting the interests of data sharers and the data subjects alike, and ultimately that of society, right? So society is at stake here, and it's your data that's going to revolutionize society. And not only just revolutionize it, it's going to further and progress society, and you're going to see that outlined here. This is in the section Towards Trusted Digital Agency. We explore the automated gateway that predetermines standard rules, and we look to the future, to the artificially intelligent agent that allows for autonomous third-party decision-making on our behalf. Here's the best part, with its associated promises and perils. Yeah, okay. Interesting. We explore the best practices in the use of data intermediaries. We identify a few different models that might work, blah, blah, blah. We explore the automated gateway that predetermines standard rules. And we look to the future, to the artificially intelligent agent that allows for autonomous third-party decision-making on our behalf with its associated promises and perils. What did Klaus Schwab say in his Fourth Industrial Revolution book and speech? He said the revolution we're about to encounter and be ushered into is as great and massive in its implications as moving into the Industrial Revolution, away from the agricultural revolution. And he said it comes with great promise and great perils. In other words, there's going to be a lot of risks being taken as we move through this new world. So they continue to say that too. Don't worry though, it's a human-centric model. There's a lot of risk though. But it's a human-centric model though, I promise. It's weird shit. Executive summary is that this part, data intermediaries represent a new policy lever to navigate the challenges of the growing data ecosystem. And herein lies the challenge. No one knows really what happens to their data or even really follows it. In other words, what they're saying, people sign up for websites, they hit I agree to the consent form without reading it, so they don't even know what data these websites and services can harvest from you and share. You make Google accounts, most people don't even know to the extent in which their data is being used. You and I do, right? We know it's being pawned off and sold because it's basically our world, society is basically like a data-based ecosystem with data being extremely valuable. Because that allows them to be able to understand human behavior and therefore end up being able to predict it. That's the main crux of all this. The status quo creates a reliance on companies to be responsible, but can lead to mistrust in the data ecosystem as a whole. In other words, people just trust that Google is going to be responsible for their data. Newsflash, they're building, well, I don't even know. Newsflash, they aren't. They're not trustworthy in the slightest, but the masses just don't even think about it. Further, mistrust between people and technology becomes amplified the more complex the data ecosystem becomes over time, which it is. That's the whole point of this document. The data ecosystem is growing exponentially and swiftly. We need to find a new revolutionary way to overcome these challenges, which is basically everything the WEF is. Where once people had screens to navigate, new ambient data collection methods with their many benefits create nervousness and resignation when people don't have the full picture. Again, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be hesitant, but don't worry, you just don't fully understand what we want yet. New ambient data collection. What is ambient, guys? What is ambient? What does that term mean? Ambient music, ambient noise, it's background, right? Ambient data collection is going to be things like you have a phone in your pocket or a chip in your arm, and you cross a threshold, a entrance into a building, and you're therefore detected on some level of like surveillance technology, okay? So that's something that you didn't even know happened, but nonetheless the data was collected, and someone knows that you entered that property because you crossed the threshold that detected your electronic device in your property. That's an example of ambient data collection. Perhaps security cameras are a version of that, right? You walk down the street, everyone is on security camera footage. That is data collection, and you didn't even know it happened. It's in the background, okay? And they say don't be nervous about that, though. In some cases, individuals may opt out of interacting with technologies that would otherwise be a huge benefit to their lives. What a shame. But, they say, what if it were possible to outsource these decision points to a trusted agent acting on an individual's or even a group's behalf? Yes, it's not just about the individual, guys. What if this automated AI-powered digital intermediary can assist you in creating a healthy digital personality, right, on behalf of the group? Here's the opportunity, they say. Now that screenless technology is a part of everyday life, there is an opportunity to rethink the human technology interaction paradigm and reposition the debate to focus on roles and responsibilities beyond the person. How can the use of data intermediaries help people navigate technologies and data ecosystem models without losing sight of what it means to be human? Well, I don't really know. It seems to me that that's a little bit of a risk. Why would we take on a risk that might eliminate human agency? Let me repeat, how can the use of data intermediaries help people navigate technology without losing sight of what it means to be human? I mean, last I checked, Klaus Schwab straight up said that the meaning of being a human is changing and evolving. He said the fourth industrial revolution, the Great Reset, by its very essence, its very nature, is evolving what it means to be human, aka merging anatomy with technology. The document then goes on to say, how can people think beyond that, given that as they move towards the complexity of screenless metaverse issues, their understanding of humanness is transforming? And there it is. Human beings are transforming. The very essence of humanity on an atomic level is transforming. It's evolving. It's the next step in evolution, akin to a caterpillar making a cocoon and emerging a butterfly. We're sort of like the sexual organs of technology. We evolve, as they say. We become advanced and intelligent, as they say. We manage to manipulate our environment because of that intelligence and make tools. Those tools become advanced pieces of technology. Those pieces of technology therein progress and progress and progress because of our intelligence until one day they're so sufficiently advanced that it gives rise to a new form of human being, one that is augmented, one whose reality is altered, one who merges and becomes one with the very pieces of technology that they gave birth to. So in a way, we serve as sexual organs to this technological revolution that will therein enslave us under the guise, or rather just under a transhumanist-driven technocracy. So let me repeat this line. How can the use of data intermediaries how can people navigate technologies and data ecosystem models without losing sight of what it means to be human? How can people think beyond that, given that as they move towards the complexity of screenless metaverse issues, their understanding of humanness is transforming? Fuck. This is wild shit. This is wild shit, and it only gets scarier, okay? Data intermediaries, especially digital agents, represent a new policy lever through and around which individuals can potentially navigate the challenges of the growing data ecosystem. This report seeks to shed light on an alternative method of mediated human-technology interaction, whereby data appears to travel seamlessly from person to technology in a human-centric and, crucially, trusted manner. Here we have, once again, the seamless integration of humans with technology, the mediated human-technology interaction. They want us cocooned in a synthetic data ecosystem, right? To condition us to then one day straight up merge with it and our identity becoming digital through the digital ID systems, which we're going to finish this episode up with, not anytime soon though. They want us to take that first step using the digital intermediary digital ID system, an evolved human technology interaction where human beings and their data seamlessly interact in live time in the background with technology, aka ambient data collection, all dictated by AI, automated. The solution to all of this, well, this report explores the opportunities and risks of data intermediaries and specifically third-party digital agents. This report paints a picture of a world that is more empathetic to people and to companies, providing greater certainty for data sharing as a foundation for innovation. See, again, we're empathetic to humans. This is why we want you to seamlessly merge with technology. Crucially, the report suggests levers of action for both the public and private sector in order to ensure a future-proof digital policy environment that allows for the seamless and trusted movement of data between the people and the technology that serves them. Right, the technology will serve us, surely. Now, there is some fluff here that's a little too dry, but we go into the next segment here, which is called the problem and notice of consent. The challenges of meaningfully consenting to personal data sharing, meaning the collection and processing of personal data, are well known. Much of people's interaction with technology relies on getting consent for data collection, right? We're all aware of that. That's what I mentioned before, but a lot of people don't understand what they're consenting to, let alone the shady backdoorship trading of data that goes on behind the scenes, whether we want it to or not. When presented with privacy notice, it's necessary to take the time to consider the implications of the terms and conditions of these services. Anyway, the term decision fatigue reflects something real. Lori Craner and Alicia McDonald of Carnegie Mellon University researched the unfathomable burden of reading privacy notices that people typically experience and the resulting difficulty in being afforded the time to meaningfully react, understand, and consent to them. In other words, they're saying, it's such a pain, I get so exhausted reading all those consent forms. Isn't there a way that a machine can do it for me? Well, you're in luck. People are simply too busy to take the time to read every consent notice on websites. So, of course, WEF has the solution. Digital AI automated digital identification systems. Getting to, ambient data collection through, for example, closed-circuit television and connected devices is increasingly common. Getting to an acceptable default state is more urgent than ever as the world moves towards the creation of the metaverse, where the metaphysical state of human technology interactions becomes ever more seamless. They seem pretty confident about this metaverse thing, right? That's a little unsettling. Then they go into the mistrust about all of this. They say that the state of today is not healthy. We have no trust in those that deal and dabble in our data. And that is true. Today's default state is not healthy. On one hand, people are sometimes accepting and left feeling empowered or disempowered. On the other hand, organizations struggle to access and process data that can meaningfully improve lives, health, and even the planet. Think about it. Once again, our data is extremely valuable, and it's not for necessarily the reasons you think. You can either look at data as being important in the realms of more specific targeted advertisements, or you can look at data in the realm of, say, medical data being combined on a planet-wide scale to develop AI automated technology that revolutionizes life sciences and medicine to therein cross the threshold into the new frontier of personalized medicine, where no longer is medical treatment a one-size-fits-all thing, right? Which is typically how it goes, depending on the thing, right? Cancer is treated in a variety of ways, but they're all one-size-fits-all. The flu is treated the same way. It's one-size-fits-all, even though that's an 80-year-old woman that's sick, and I'm a 30-year-old man that's sick. It's interesting that the treatment is always the same, but personalized medicine comes into reality when we have enough data to develop the technology to adequately determine the right treatment based on your personal genetic makeup. Remember, let's go back in time. What did I discuss in our 23andMe and Epstein video, guys? Remember, Epstein was working on that specifically. He was creating an algorithm that health officials and medical corporations and businesses could rent, where they would use this algorithm to examine all of these different medical data points that would therein determine the best course of treatment. What did his Israeli military connected friend, Nicole Junkerman, what was she involved with? Well, she was involved in the National Institute of Health, okay? And not only that, her company was involved in the creation of predictive technology that would automate the clinical trial process and predict diseases and develop cures and treatments before the disease even takes hold. So you understand we're moving into the new world of personalized medicine, and that is why they're talking about here how organizations struggle to access and process data that can meaningfully improve lives, health, and even the planet. That's what they're talking about. It helps the planet because it creates these types of technologies, but you can clearly see how that would be misused. So it goes on to say that the intermediate, like, there is no nuance. There is no like permission saying like, can this entity collect your data? You know, and individuals either say like yes or no without meaningfully understanding shit about where their data goes. So they predict or propose a new approach. What if there was a better way? What if you could outsource the decision-making fatigue, aka, do I want my data given here, or do I want it given here, or do I not want it given to Google at all, or whatever? What if you could pre-consent to your preferences, so you did not need to continuously opt in? What if technology allowed you to outsource your decision-making even further to a digitally automated agent, potentially using artificial intelligence, which would actively make those decisions for you? All such scenarios require the enlisting of an intermediary. So very interesting. And I know this kind of sounds maybe kind of like fluff. It's a little, I hate to say a little dry, but it is valuable information nonetheless. So I do hope that you're taking some value from this. And then they ask, is the world ready for such a radical and human-centered approach to managing data relationships? So you see, they're always mentioning it's human-centered, don't worry. Human-centered, don't worry. The possibilities of a mediated approach to data sharing by a third party are as limitless as the possibilities of data sharing itself. Data intermediaries can empower people to control and even automate the flow of data about themselves. It will also improve cross-border data flows and allow for the leveraging of personal data for social impact. What does that mean? Think about it. Control and even automate your own data and where it goes, improve cross-border data flows, and allow for the leveraging of personal data for social impact. What that means, and what they go on to say it means, is, again, we're improving the planet with our data. We're finding a way to harvest your data, but protecting you while we do it. In other words, we want you to maintain your privacy. So we're going to make this AI-powered automated tool that harvests that data, ensures that you're anonymous, and then gives it to every direction in every industry and sector to benefit the planet and benefit society. Because what did they just say there? Leveraging personal data for social impact. Social impact. Because we're progressing and technology's cool. Data intermediaries can take many forms, but what they all share in common is a primary purpose of facilitating and managing data relationships between data rights holders. This is interesting. At their most basic level, data intermediaries facilitate the exchange of information. At their most sophisticated, they can assume decision-making, including on behalf of people. So this machine, this technology, powered by AI, will assume decision making about where our data goes and who has access to it for the benefit of the planet, including on behalf of people. And of course, they put it under the guise of us having more control over our data, right? No more will we sign up for random services like Google and Twitter without being unaware of what they're doing with our data. Instead, they propose, why don't we just have all your data, but we'll make sure you're anonymous and you have control over it and stuff. They can vet parties that would receive the data to determine if they are trusted based on a set of externally published data standards. This is interesting. Conversely, okay, here, a data intermediary can leverage economies of scale to implement technologies to enable greater protection of personal data through real-time anonymization, which is what I was saying. You're going to be sharing your data with medical corporations for study, scientific bodies for study, the government for analysis, but don't worry, you're anonymous because this digital intermediary provides that service, real-time anonymization, okay? But check this out. Conversely, the data intermediary could also verify and confirm the identity of the individual, thereby providing additional guarantees that the information being shared belongs to you and only you. This is unsettling. I don't like it. There is one segment that pops out. And here they say it right there. They propose the idea of storing individuals' personal data within a personal data space or a vault, advising individuals on uses of their data, including tracking who is using their data and for what purpose. Here's the big one, leveraging individuals' personal data for social impact, such as to contribute to academic or scientific research, right? So again, they even mention in the vaccine passport section here, the idea of social impact or planetary benefit comes down to how beneficial and productive it would be if they only had access to all of our vaccine passport medical data. They said if the entire world and all the scientific medical doctors in the entire world had access to all of that, it would give them much greater insight into the status of COVID, how we need to combat it, and what we can do better, right? So again, our very essence, our data, our day-to-day life, even being ambiently collected, will be whittled down to having social impact, dedicated to improving the planet. So they propose this new life cycle, which isn't, it's not extremely important. Identify, collect, process, analyze the info, release it and disseminate it, connect, incentivize, influence, use, change, reuse, and then there's a feedback loop. Real boring shit. Anyway, they talk about the feedback loop here. They say something is something everyone's familiar with. It is the means by which functional data sharing takes place and how technology knows what to serve back. It has implications for online advertising, profiling, and taken to the extreme is key to dark patterns, which combine heretofore disparate data sets for the purposes of manipulating the user in a non-transparent manner. You see why they continuously and insist on making sure they keep saying this is human-centric, because the technology we're developing and want to thrust into the world, well, there is potential for some dark patterns, aka combining all this disparate data into a singular centralized database for the purposes of manipulating you by an automated AI machine. Okay, so let's go ahead and end this document here. There is like a lot more that I've got here. You should look into it yourself, but I think the most important part where they mention actual microchips is, here it is. They talk about the evolutions in digital identity solutions and how they can help. And here we have the digital ID, what it means now, what its evolution will be, and what it will be in the future. So they talked about now the digital ID will be traditional intermediaries and user consent, web browsers, mobile devices, and apps. The evolution of it will be personal data stores, on-device data storage, and more advanced data intermediaries, aka more control over your data. The future, next level of data intermediaries, embedded in body. Embedded in body. Right here, guys. Embedded in body. So they are still gunning for the microchip implantable future, guys. And worse than that, again, that's like inherent ambient data collection. If it's embedded in your body, we're going to be talking about the monitoring of physiological data down to your very heartbeat. They'll know exactly how many times a day your heart beats per day. They're going to know how quickly your blood flows through your fucking body. They're going to know before you do that your heart is failing because there's a decreased flow being pumped out from one of the valves. That's how fucking crazy it is, okay? So that is the document. You should go check that out yourself. We're going to finish a few more minutes here. We're going to conclude this video, though, with why did I bring this part up in the Ukraine? I do appreciate you guys hanging, guys. Please be sure to share this video. Follow me, rockfin.com/memoryhold. Donation links are up above. And most importantly, just follow me, Rockfin and BitChute. I appreciate you. I put some fucking work in for you motherfuckers, you information terrorists. Shaming Apple and texting Musk, a Ukraine minister uses novel war tactics. His name is Mikhailo Fedorov, and he's Ukraine's youngest minister. And they say he's turned technology, crypto, and social media into modern weapons of war. It's an interesting article, guys, because you'll find out why. So, after the war began last month, President Zelensky of Ukraine turned to his buddy Fedorov, a vice prime minister, for a key role. He's 31 years old, and he's the youngest member of the cabinet. He began a campaign to rally support from multinational businesses to sunder Russia from the world economy and to cut off the country from the global internet, taking aim at everything from access to new iPhones and PlayStations to Western Union money transfers and PayPal. So all of this chatter you've heard about Russia being essentially being thrust into a digital iron curtain, entirely cut off from digital services from the West, it's this guy, Fedorov, who's behind all of it. And he seemingly is single-handedly doing it. And for whatever reason has extreme influence because, well, you'll see. To achieve Russia's isolation, Mr. Fedorov, a former tech entrepreneur, used a mix of social media, crypto, and other digital tools. On Twitter and other social media, he pressured Apple, Google, Netflix, Intel, PayPal, and others to stop doing business in Russia. He helped form a group of volunteer hackers to wreak havoc on Russian websites and online services. Oh, so he's playing straight up fucking dirty at this point. The work has made Mr. Fedorov one of Mr. Zelensky's most visible lieutenants, deploying technology and finance as modern weapons of war. In effect, Mr. Fedorov is creating a new playbook for military conflicts that shows how an outgunned country can use technology to help undercut a foreign aggressor. Bear with me, guys. You'll see why. This is important. In an interview, they go on to say that Mr. Fedorov said his goal was to create a digital blockade and to make life so unpleasant and inconvenient for Russian citizens that they would question the war. Guys, look, I'm not going to pretend to be on the side of Russia. I'm not on the side of Ukraine. Imagine just being a random Russian kid. A dude. Someone that makes videos like me over there. Maybe less conspiratorial because I don't want Putin to kill me. Now you can't access all this shit. They're punishing the average person. You see how vicious these fucking people are, man? Even if they question the war, the average citizen, what the fuck are they going to do about it other than disappear in a hole somewhere? These people are vicious. They're shameless, man. They're attacking the very individual, your average citizen that has nothing to do with this, you know? Treating them like soldiers. But what's changed? Same thing like in the Middle East, right? As long as you're a military-aged male, we gonna get you. We believe that as long as Russians are silent, that they are complicit to the aggression and to the killing of our people, he says. That's right. Silence is violence. Where have we heard that before? See, if you're not an active participant in unrolling this social movement, you're an enemy. What did we discuss in my previous video? I think literally just in my last video, guys, about, once again, the open conspiracy. You can't just agree with the tenets of this open, candid conspiracy that Wells discusses and what's being rolled out right in front of our eyes, rebranded as the NWO, then the reset. You can't just sit back and say, yeah, that's good. You have to live your life by its doctrine. You have to actively work to roll it out and play your part. Again, we all have a role to play. If you don't get the jab, the vaccine, you're actively an enemy because you didn't play your part to help us emerge and create the new world post-pandemic, the new normal, right? Well, we believe that as long as Russians are silent, that they're complicit to the aggression and the killing of our people. There is no neutrality. There is no, I just want to stay out of it. You are effectively the enemy if you remain silent. You're either with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, well, prepare to feel the pain, okay? And that is what Wells says. There is no backseat people. You're either with us and actively working on the social revolution, or you're an enemy. Someone resistant to creating this new, beautiful, utopian world, only being held back by those living in the Stone Ages that still believe in Jesus Christ. Anyway, he joined up for a job with Zelensky in 2018. Mr. Fedorov became the campaign's director of digital, using social media to portray Mr. Zelensky as a youthful symbol of change. So there we have it. This guy, Fedorov, was essential in the propaganda campaign to erect and install Zelensky as a youthful symbol of change, and install him as the president. So his massive propaganda campaign, using his digital tools, that's his expertise, marketing and digital advertising, helped, I guess, was key to getting Zelensky in there. And we know that Zelensky is a Western puppet and is most likely installed on behalf of Western powers and Western intelligence. Well, you can imagine Fedorov is brushing shoulders with some spooks too, and perhaps was even dispatched for them to do this and help it along. But of course, he has to be a youthful symbol of not anything else but change, not peace, not whatever, but change, because we're changing. We got to change the world, the entire world. Anyway, in 2019, he appointed Mr. Fedorov, then 28, to be the Minister of Digital Transformation, putting him in charge of digitizing Ukrainian social services. Through a government app, people could pay speeding tickets or manage their taxes. Last year, Mr. Fedorov visited Silicon Valley to meet with leaders including Tim Cook, chief executive of Apple. And after Russia invaded, Mr. Fedorov immediately pressured tech companies to pull out of Russia. He said it's time to take a side, either to take the side of peace or to take the side of terror and murder. He sent letters to Apple, Google, and Netflix asking them to restrict access to their services in Russia. Less than a week later, Apple stopped selling new iPhones in Russia. That's fucking huge. How much power does this Fedorov guy have? It's also a testament to just how rabid we are in terms of Ukraine. But guys, even better. Look what he's involved with. You remember Elon Musk sending over Starlink satellites to Ukraine? Well, guess who was behind that? Fedorov. Fedorov tweeted a message to Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, asking for help in obtaining Starlink satellite internet systems that are made by Elon Musk. The technology could help Ukrainians stay online even if Russia damaged the country's main telecommunications. 2 days after contacting Elon, a shipment of Starlink equipment arrived in Ukraine. You know, I gotta say, this Fedorov fella, when he makes a request, some very powerful people leap at the opportunity immediately to serve him. Here's the issue. Let's not pretend we're talking about the internet and telecommunications here with Elon Musk's Starlink. This is a military application. Elon Musk is a vessel, is a front for the military-industrial complex. The military is using these systems, including Starlink, for a variety of reasons. Surveillance, monitoring, and God knows what else. So really, that shipment of Starlink to Ukraine is not just to protect telecommunications, guys. At least I don't think so. It's a backdoor, a secret little covert loophole on part of the military to get into the Ukraine without outright saying that they're in the Ukraine, right? Because we can't deploy troops. We can't get that info. You know what I'm saying? We're kind of lending our support in a variety of different ways, but we can't get too intimate in terms of the support. Otherwise, it'll be directly combating Russia. Yeah, so Elon Musk is sort of a front to the military-industrial complex as we knew anyway. So that Starlink transfer, guys, is important, I think. And Fedorov, well, he's essential to it. Fedorov also had a call with the vice president of Google. Well, what happened after that? Google made several changes, including restricting access to Google Maps features that Mr. Fedorov said were safety risks because it could help Russians identify crowds of people. After that call, the company then also suspended sales of other products and services, and finally blocked access to Russian state media globally on YouTube. And guess what? He's also pretty close with your boy Nick Clegg, the head of global affairs at Meta. That's right. The head of global affairs at Meta, because we're all going to the metaverse. Yeah. Apple, Google, and Meta declined to comment. Everyone declined to comment. He said more could be done. Apple and Google should pull their fucking app stores from Russia. So, interesting article, right? So, what's the Ministry of Digital Information? That's it. The Ministry of Digital Transformation, of which this Fedorov fella is the minister of. He was appointed in, I don't know, a few years ago, 2019. The ministry's most important project is the so-called State in a Smartphone project. The State in the Smartphone project. And it's aiming by 2024 to have 100% of all government services available online, with 20% of services provided automatically without the intervention of an official, aka automation, and one online fill-in form to receive packages of services in any life situation. So complete coverage of your entire life, anytime you'll ever need paperwork for anything that has to do with the government, we want that all in one spot, aka we want to centralize it, and we want to automate it, and we want to digitize it. In 2019, he said that the State and the Smartphone project would not be funded by the state budget, but that it would rely on an effective team and international technical assistance, public-private partnerships, and volunteers. Do you maybe want to take a guess as to who might volunteer for such a thing? Who else is really into the idea of public-private partnerships when it comes to revolutionizing and digitizing the world? Could it be your boy Klaus Schwab? Could it be that the same individual talking about the only way we can combat the existential threats that await us in this uncertain future, such as cyber hacks taking down the electrical grid, cyber polygon, pandemics threatening the entire globe, climate change, lighting the fucking earth on fire? Yeah, that's Klaus Schwab saying that, and he says the only way to combat that is if we create a system of public-private partnerships in which we all work actively like a hive mind together to eliminate the existential threats. Because again, if not everyone is involved, we're fucked. That's what they say. That's why, what is it? Everyone's got a role to play. Silence is violence, right? If you don't actively participate, you're actively killing the planet, right? So no wonder it's not funded by the Ukraine. It's an effective team of international technical assistance, aka a bunch of Klaus Schwab spooks, a bunch of NGO Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation fucktards, public-private partnerships. Prime Minister Haucharuk stressed that each government ministry had planned expenditures for digitization, blah, 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 blah. So, let me just make sure. Okay, so that's it. Interesting, right? Now, it might not sound that serious, the idea of the state and the smartphone idea. And let's be honest, it is convenient, right? But again, we're seeing the comprehensive digitization of any matter of business related to any life situation. And Ukraine, by the way, this is the most advanced nation in terms of this movement, in terms of digitizing everything on a individual basis that they'll ever need. State and a smartphone. And it's run by the very same guy that plays a key, most important role in implementing the digital blockade that we're seeing wielded against Russia. And they're leaping at the opportunity to help this guy. They call up the vice president of Google. The next day, Google Maps is down in Russia. They call up the head of Meta. The next day, the next thing happens. He calls up the Tim Cook, the whatever at Apple. The next day, Apple says, yeah, I guess we can get rid of a few $1 billion in revenue and stop selling Apple iPhones in Russia. This guy's important, and he's digitizing Ukraine, and he's going to be digitizing the entire world, or at least setting in motion that. Now, Dia is the app, basically, or the program that is the state and smartphone project. Dia was firstly presented on September 27, 2019 as a brand of the state and smartphone project. Fedorov announced that the creation of a mobile app and a web portal which would unite in a single place all the services provided by the state to citizens and business. So it's called Dia. The mobile app Dia was officially launched in 2020. They say that 9 million Ukrainians now have access to their driver's licenses and car registration documents on their phone. In fact, they'd go so far as to call this implementation a priority for the government. And here we go, guys. In April 2020, the Ukrainian government approved a resolution for experimental usage of digital ID cards and passports, which could be issued to all Ukrainians via Dia. The Ukrainian government approved a resolution for experimental usage of digital ID cards. Okay, is the groundwork settled for you, all of you now? So now we'll end the show off with this detail. Would it be surprising at all to find his face on this very familiar website? Ya boy Fedorov, spearheading the digitization and rolling out of a digital ID system in Ukraine, the state and a smartphone program, and responsible for the essential wartime role of digitally blockading Russia, the invading forces. The survival of the Ukraine relies on starving out the Russians and exhausting them until they finally give in because they no longer have digital access to anything ever. That's Fedorov. That's the World Economic Forum, and Fedorov, of course, is in bed with the World Economic Forum and the digitization of and automation of man. There we go, guys. There we go. All right, so let me just check the comments here. Thank you once again for all the... That's a lot of ice creams. Thanks, guys. BT Ilium, what's up, dude? Sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing that. Thank you for following. I am Key. Kaiser Soze, what's up? Thank you for following. Oh yeah, absolutely, James. What happens is anytime you miss a stream on DLive, go to the replay tab. So let me show you. Okay, you can see. Go to the replay tab, and as you can see, the past two videos, my past two streams are still available, and they remain available for a few days, like 3 days. I appreciate you hanging out, James. Thank you for following the other day too. I think you need a certain number of subs for DLive to save your replays. Yeah, it might be 1,000. I'm not sure, but I don't know. I always remember having them, so I'm not entirely sure about that. Okay, you've been streaming here for 2 years and it does. Okay, good, man, good. Let me just check out the rest of this stuff. Ooh, nice. Okay, that's a good article. How staged Russia-Ukraine war is meant to usher in digital currency control grid. Good shit. I'm gonna shit my pants if it mentions Fedorov, because I just discovered this kind of myself. That's when you know if like you're on the right track, you know? If like, oh, what's up? It's fucking Chad. Is that you? Good work, man.
The owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Everyone go check out Chad's work. He does good work, and he's all around cool dude. He's been with us for quite a while now. Dude, how long has it been since you started making, making videos? It's been a minute now, right? Like, you've been at it for a long time, man. I'm glad you never let up, dude. Despite everything that's fucking happened.
So I've been getting this question a lot recently. How does this staged inorganic war between Puppet Putin and Puppet Zelensky tie into the rollout of CBDCs in the coming digital identity? Well, this is your answer right here. This is off omfif.org today. CBDC networks could defang sanction threats. Now, I highlighted the most important part of this article for you to read, and you're going to see exactly how they're going to do this. Russia, along with China, has been attempting to reduce its reliance on the dollar, both in payments and in...
That's a good point. I forgot to even bring that up. To be honest, I have to brush up on it. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about the reliance on the dollar. They're moving away from it. Once again, we're talking about the New World Order plan that's been in the works for a long time, slicing away Ukraine, putting Russia in a bubble, therein giving Russia incentive to sort of team up with China, which will result in the ultimate World War III scenario. And that is what a lot of geopolitical analysts, and not just your average ones, but people that are on board with our belief system, they say that really this scuffle here isn't so much of a threat. It really comes down to if Russia gets into bed with China more so than they already are, to eventually come to blows with the West. And of course, the dollar and the reliance of the dollar, or rather moving away from the dollar, is probably going to play a key role in that. But I'm not going to pretend to be a geopolitical expert, but these are the things I've read from some very credible people. So yeah, good call on that. I didn't see this.
Debt markets. But international trade is extremely difficult without access to the greenback. Only the largest currencies have liquid cross-currency swap markets with their most frequent pairs. Everyone else takes a route through the dollar. But the power of these sanctions as an economic weapon will not last forever. Cross-border central bank digital currency networks are in development across Asia, like the MCBDC bridge, which involves Thailand, Hong Kong, China, and the UAE. Russia's central bank is working on a digital ruble. Let me repeat that. Russia's central bank is working on a digital ruble, and Governor Elvira Nabiullina has expressed interest in its value as a means of facilitating cross-border payments, particularly with China. Cryptocurrencies and stablecoins might also provide an avenue, although for the moment,
something's clicking with me here. I can't get into it now because I just want to finish this video here and then call it a night. But I was reading a book today called A Brief History of the Future by Jacques Attali. They call him the French Henry Kissinger. Needless to say, his vision of the future is precisely what's laid out in the books that we've been studying and analyzing in my Elite Mindset Analysis series. Cross-border digital currency that plays a role. Needless to say, Attali's vision of the future is precisely that. It's fucking wild, guys. So follow me on Twitter and Gab and see when I'll be covering that book, because it's going to blow your fucking mind, dude. It's wild shit.
The scale of Russian exports would be daunting for the market. While Russian institutions can be shut out of exchanges, the ability to transact on a peer-to-peer basis makes it a viable alternative to Western-controlled payment mechanisms. Expect Western authorities to step up their policing of the off-ramps from cryptocurrencies to fiat currency in an effort to stymie this route around sanctions. Do you see it? Very transparent. So they're using the good cop, bad cop thing to push this CBDC through. Oh, we can't let Russia get around the sanctions. That means we have to pass more legislation against our own citizens to police their use of cryptocurrencies because, oh, Russia. You see how that works? So you're not going to be able to have privacy. You're not going to be able to use things like Monero because they don't want that, right? That's Russian money laundering techniques.
Yeah, dude, and besides, privacy, dude, I don't really care about privacy. I mean, dude, I don't have anything to hide. I don't care, dude. Dude, I got nothing to hide, bro. Why would I care? I'm not hiding nothing, dude.
You know what I mean? That's terrorist funding techniques. You can't use things like Monero. They have to know everything about what you're doing at all times. That's where this whole control system is going to come into play with the New World Order. That's how they're going to control our lives. And you're going to start hearing too, oh, Russia, they're developing a CBDC. We have to roll one out because we can't let them become dominant. China, they're developing one too. Oh, everyone is. I guess we have to as well. You see how that works, guys? They socially engineer us with cryptocurrencies for years. They get us used to it. Oh, Bitcoin, it's this new technology. It's going to take down the man and it's going to destroy central bankers and it's for the people.
Yeah, and it's specifically marketed as that too. It's not even just a good alternative to physical cash, but it's specifically marketed towards the idea of like seizing back control from Big Brother, you know? So it's like a insult to injury when it finally flips on its head and is really just conditioning, social engineering, as you said, Chad, to rolling this bigger vision out.
No, cryptocurrencies for the time being, sure, they can be a lot of good things, but ultimately it's just social engineering to get us used to the technology to adopt it, and if we don't adopt it, they'll force us to adopt it one way or another, and then once they have us using it, they have us dependent on it, that's when they roll out the CBDC because that was the goal the entire time. It literally couldn't be more clear. It's so obvious. You know what I mean? So if you wanted an answer to that question, that's it.
Damn, dude. Good summary, man. Good fucking summary there. I didn't see that article. That's a good one. Good video. All right, guys. Anyway, I really appreciate you all for hanging out tonight. Let me, I don't have a link to that document. Just look up, it's publicly available, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have it. Advancing Digital Agency, the Power of Data Intermediaries. Once more, guys, rockfin.com/memoryhold. Sign up, make a free account. If you pay $9.99 a month, you don't only unlock my premium content, which is also on Patreon, but you unlock everyone's. It's a pretty good platform. It's got an iOS app, really convenient. But BitChute is still awesome too. bitchute.com/memoryhold. If you wish to financially tip me, buy your boy a Lamborghini, donation links are up above. Like I said, I'm putting it towards a website. No time frame on that. I'm just shuffling it away so I have the funds to make it hopefully pretty dope. So CrowdStrike doesn't kick my door in and say, listen, buddy, you can't talk about Pizzagate. All right, guys. Otherwise, have a great rest of your Sunday evening. And I'll have some videos up for you shortly. Have a good one.